Good morning, everyone. I'm Kyler Cheatham, your host of the Confluential Live. If you're new here, thanks so much for joining us today. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all the platforms. We're influencers in the nerdiest way possible. So we're excited to be here with you this morning. We're going to take on a hot topic that we've seen a lot of kind of chatter around in the marketplace from not only the leadership project side, but also just from the employee side. We've seen, Accenture this week laid off 10,000 employees. And so we kind of wanted to talk about what are we seeing in real businesses, not, shock and awe headlines of what's happening with AI and the IT department. So that's kind of what we're going to take on today. But before I introduce Adam and get his take on it, just some logistics for our stream today. So we are streaming on a variety of different platforms. We can see your comments. The system aggregates them. The cool part about these conversations is it really doesn't matter what we say, right? It matters what's best for your business. And a lot of that comes from the questions and insight we get from our greater community, because there's many to success, right? So I invite you to drop your comments. At first, I'd love to hear where you're joining us from this morning. If it's raining, because it's definitely rainy here in the high desert, which we don't actually get a lot. So kind of
All day.
yeah, interesting day for us. So if you could just test out that function for me and let us know where you're joining from today and maybe your take on IT versus AI. So with that, Adam, good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are joining us from. It's always fun to see when we have people chime in from all corners of the world. We
Mhm.
help a lot of companies with a lot of different things everywhere across the world, and we're really excited to have this topic this morning: AI versus IT and how that shakes out. Because I think it's what's interesting about the speed of AI is that it has not solved itself with much speed. It's only kind of created this more complex conversation along the way with what can it replace, what can't it
Yeah,
replace, and every time you make an assumption that it is going to replace something, you find out, well, maybe not so much.
exactly.
And so there's a lot that it can do and will do, and a lot that we help our clients with, of course. But at the end of the day, some of the more traditional functions still don't go away, right? So in today's discussion, we want to talk about what AI can do, but we also want to understand that AI is not going to replace IT. Uh,
Mhm.
IT still has a viable function in the business, and serving the business itself. And so, look forward to the conversation today.
Absolutely. And I think there's something that's kind of where I want to start, right? We've got a lot of kind of shock and awe headlines about AI and what it's doing and what it's kind of replacing. I think we'll get into that. But I hear we even saw this with the rise of kind of the digital transformation, right? There's been this
Mm.
resurgence of this department that's either the transformation department. If you've followed me for a long time, you know that I can't stand that word because it doesn't mean anything, right? And we've created whole departments around it. And so I'm curious your thoughts on, is this a good thing to have some department that's bridging IT, core IT, right, with the business when it comes to talking about business systems? Do you think that's needed?
Absolutely, and I don't think it belongs to AI. To be
No.
entirely fair and honest, I think that there's a liaison function that is necessary, and I don't know that it needs to be a team or a department or whatever, as much as it needs to be a function and a role where you have a scenario where IT should serve as an enabler of the business through technology, and the business has all of these needs and is, of course, responsible for the front end of how the organization makes money. But if you start thinking about it from a perspective of how do you broker a relationship between IT and the business, there's something to be said in that space that is diagnosing what the challenge is, right?
Mhm.
I've spent a career in that space,
Mhm.
and we sit in that space today, and that's one of the things that I think that is one of the greatest value adds about our company is that
Mhm.
It's about the people that sit between IT and the business, and how you use technology to more effectively facilitate your processes. And that little triangle there is really something that you can gain a lot from, right? So it could be as simple as a liaison role. um, that liaison role for organizations that aren't large enough to sustain an independent role might sit in IT. It might be the
Mhm.
one IT guy,
Mhm.
um, or it might be somebody in the business who's responsible for facilitating those conversations with the tech teams. Or it could be serve as a full blown PMO. We
Mhm.
built enterprise PMOs for organizations that
Mhm.
uh, need that function. And I think at the end of the day, what isn't going to happen is AI is not going to automatically create a successful relationship between the business and IT.
You're
And
quite the
that's, well, and that's what really is the core of how those things function successfully, right? Your systems represent your business effectively when the technical teams understand what the business needs in a way to solve for the problems that they are seeking to provide solutions for. So, uh,
opposite.
that's, I guess that's a long-winded answer. I'm curious, as
Yeah.
somebody who's been more traditionally on the business side of things in the past, what's your point of view on that?
I think, I mean, I'm just going to take a hard take because I think that that's easier sometimes for these conversations. I absolutely think that there should be no digital transformation department that doesn't roll through IT. I think when you start to water down IT structure and being able to manage technical projects, then you meet things where functions are misunderstood, or all of a sudden we're implementing magic that can't actually be done. But a lot of business people that don't have any idea what the technical capabilities of the organization are. And that's where all of a sudden we have these executives being like, we need to be AI first. And it's like, excuse me, sir, we have a 30-year-old green screen. So what do you mean? Like, what are you even talking about in
Yeah.
that situation? I'd love to be AI first, but I don't even have 1 ounce of data governance. I don't know where our data is. I have no behaviors throughout the organization that could support that. And I think that's where we really get into trouble. So when we start to hear the rise of the digital transformation department, and if you're, I hear this a lot on TikTok, if you're a digital transformation supervisor, manager, whatever, that does not mean you're not valuable. That's not at all what I'm saying. I think you actually are very valuable because clearly you've proven that you're able to bridge the gap. I just think any sort of department that's going to be in charge of any sort of project management for business systems needs to be under a traditional IT leadership. And that includes AI, because we've seen a lot of AI departments rise up. That is a great thing. That's exciting. New innovations, new business systems. There still needs to be a traditional role to project management and IT leadership in that. That's
Does that
my take.
belong in IT, or what side of the fence does that
Absolutely.
belong in? Where does
It
it live?
belongs,
Does it live in
yeah,
IT or the business?
it absolutely belongs in IT. And I think that's where we see the rise of this value, that there is an area of IT that is that liaison focus, right? That can go in and grab business requirements from the business, right? Which is their customer, and then translate it back to IT. But that should be one team. It should not be two different departments that roll into, one rolls into the business, right? And one rolls into IT. I really think that CIO position needs to oversee both of those different departments.
Interesting.
So,
Said, I am very much as a that should live in the business.
yeah,
It's a job that belongs to the business. The business should sit in the driver's seat, and they should be the ones making the decisions. When IT makes decisions for the business, that usually doesn't go well. And even when it does, it's
absolutely.
usually not entirely driven towards business function, because that's when you turn into the right. But we have a project to upgrade all of our databases to the coolest, newest stuff. I got a client that's half of the reason that they're not doing things is because they're saying, "Well, we've got to get that into Boomi," and the business says, "I don't care about Boomi. What is Boomi? What? Like, I just want to be able to enter a sales order and add new fields to it for this region that we're developing. into, and then, well, we got to get that through the Boomi team. Like, why is that a problem? Well, we implemented this new tool, and the business doesn't need that. That was we created it. We bought this tool so it can create citizen developers within the business, and the business is like, I don't want to do that.
I'm not a citizen
What is
developer.
that? What is citizen developer? What are you talking about? What language is this that you speak to me? I just want to be able to create a production schedule
Mhm.
in a way that allows me to take an urgent order and push everything downstream so that I can cram this one in because they're going to pay me an extra $1,000,000 for it. That's what I want to do. And well, no, you can't do that. It's not the way the system works. And I just
Yeah.
I am firmly entrenched in the business should be the one driving this. And when IT tells the business, there are two scenarios where I get real spun up on. Obviously,
Yeah.
when IT tells the business no, that's a problem for me.
Mhm.
Um, especially when it's a no, that can't be done. And when IT tells the business, we're not going to do that project because we have a higher priority one that is more based on tools that you won't understand. They're fancy stuff that are for us. I could care less what you're operating on if my business doesn't function. Doesn't matter how swanky your little middleware is. Anyway, so those are, I think, are challenges, and I think if you put IT in the driver's seat, they will make decisions that are not designed to solve the needs of the business. They're designed to buy shiny new toys, and
Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
I mean,
I've lived in IT my entire life. I've seen.
absolutely. And I did not. So like that's an important, and that's why I took a take so that we could have these different conversations because it's not about what I think, right? And it's not about what Adam thinks. It's about what's best for your organization. If you're in an organization where the IT culture does not see themselves as the business being their customer, that's a problem, right? Then we can't have, and to me, not to say, for these types of example, that shows a broken leadership tier when it comes to the IT leadership team, that they're not setting expectations, but it's like, we can't do that, but, right? We can't do that now yet, right? It's not acceptable
Yeah,
for anyone on the business or the IT side to say no, right? That's not and we see that a lot, the keeper of the systems. I mean, as someone and spent an entire career fighting IT for, the systems that I have wanted. I think it just showcases the power of the project management office, whether that's under
Mhm.
IT or anything like that. It has to be a balance between, right, the ability for IT to say, I can't do that because it's not on my priority list. So, Mr. CEO that went to CES and saw a floating tractor and decided all of a sudden we're going to make a floating tractor. And they come and they say, hey, stop everything you're doing. We're going to make a floating tractor out of magic when we don't have any infrastructure nor resources to do it. Go do, because I'm the business and I make decisions. There needs to be a balance to someone saying, wow, that's super cool, Mr. CEO, that you saw a flying tractor. But hey, we don't even have any sort of cloud infrastructure at this very moment. So, yes, we'd love to make a floating tractor. However, we need to do A, B, and C, and that's going to cost X, Y, and Z
well,
beforehand.
yes, that's the part of the conversation that's so important, which is I give you whatever you want.
Exactly.
It was within the
I
capacity.
personally love floating tractors.
Yeah,
Like, I would
that
really
that
love to be a
sounds
part of that.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And if we could take that floating tractor and put a catapult on the top of it,
Yeah.
even better, right? So that we can kind of launch seeds, and we can plant, and we do all of the things. Um, but it has to be a balanced conversation that's within the scope of the capacity of the organization, right? Yeah, we can do whatever you want. We could, if you want us to build a floating tractor that is controlled through a remote that is connected to the internet and all the smart things, the Internet of Things, and all that stuff, and um, whatever, fine. This is what we think it's going to take to do that, and this is what we're going to have to put off.
Hmm. Yes.
Maybe we do get a fancy new shiny tool and all this stuff. That sounds great. That sounds pretty cool. And actually, now that we're talking about floating tractors, this actually sounds kind of fun. But at the end of the day, it has to be within a conversation of reason. I don't know what you're laughing. To the
The
end, find anything is possible.
Yeah,
Uh,
right. I'll put them on the stream here so you guys can see them
uh,
because they're
there
just
we
funny
go.
to read.
So,
And we'll get to them in just a second. Thank you
yeah,
always.
but
But
it has to be a conversation, though. That's the thing.
yeah,
I can give you what you asked for, but I can't give you all of the things.
yes, absolutely. And I think that's where strong leadership comes in. But I'm still going to say that should live in IT, right?
Mhm.
And I think the modern CIO is really responsible for setting up that leadership structure. I'm not saying it's
Yeah,
easy, but I'm saying that that's what needs to happen in
yeah.
this new world of AI. So let's pivot a little bit and get to some of these questions. I
Well,
love
I love that sometimes it's okay to think outside the box. Let's see what we already have in place and what we can use to solve the problem before we step outside the box. This is in line with so many important points in that we talk a lot in here about the idea like people call it I need a new ERP
mhm.
and they just want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
replace it. They want to pull the old one out.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, that's up to them what their reasoning is. But sometimes the answer isn't a new ERP. That's I've said it many times on this live stream. Implementing an ERP system sucks, and that comes from somebody who does it for a living, right? Like it's hard to do, and when you can answer your own questions with the tools that you have, then do that. You should.
Mhm.
You should at least know that you don't have those tools. So when we start thinking about what we have, what can we do with what we already have? And then how do we also start thinking about the things that we aren't going to get if we do it that way? If you implement a new ERP, everything else on the list of things to do is going to sit for
Mhm.
18 months.
Exactly.
It,
At least. Yeah.
don't, I don't, well, they say 9 to 12. NetSuite says 3 to 4. I can promise you the chances that you are in the bucket of folks who can make that happen is small.
Did NetSuite make you mad or something this week? Because you've just
I haven't. No, I mean that's what's great. They're just a good. They're a disruptive
yeah,
entity
I'm
with a
just
lot of great ideas, so they're fun to pick on. But at the end of the day, this is such a great comment, and just really realizing what do we need to accomplish, and when we start thinking about what we need to accomplish, we can start getting after it. And that's more important.
yeah. Yeah, this is Dr. Ed Tech. If just this quick shout out, if you don't follow his podcast on education tech, you absolutely should. He's fantastic. And I think a lot of times that surprises clients when we go into the organization because we're very we're not going to ask you, right, what you want as far as new. We're going to ask you what you have because that's going to be, the start to that conversation to figure out, like, do you actually need new tech or do you not need new tech? And what does that look like? But again, that's a collaborative decision between the business and AI. So when we talked about um, thinking about outside the box, right, where does replacing IT with AI come into the mix. And so let me just give you a little like set the groundwork here. Okay. So we've seen big tech lay off massive, mostly offshore, but a lot here in the States and other, areas because they're becoming more of an automation company. I did a live on TikTok about, the CEO of Accenture. She said, these employees cannot be upskilled because we're an AI and automation company. So when we look at this kind of rise of layoffs and then people thinking that AI can run their tech team, what is your response to that?
So I think that there's a lot wrapped up with that. I think that some of it is just like some folks can't be upskilled, and that's fine, right? And I think that maybe that's more of a response to we have this bloated organization
Yeah.
where we're charging too much for dinosaurs and too much for green graduates who don't know what a bit how a business functions, and our clients are starting to get frustrated by the fact that we have these folks who can't seem to figure out what technology is because they are still They still have a rotary phone in their home. And these kids that just came out of school who don't know what a business
Mhm.
is because they've been studying how things quote unquote should be in the world for the last 4 years, and they don't have any ability to connect the dots. And now our clients are upset because neither of those populations of people add value. So we're losing business because we can't figure out how to actually execute a project when we have people who are incapable of actually doing the work, right? In some of those projects with those massive consulting firms that are billing, I kid you not, $5 million a week,
Absolutely.
at times. I mean, it's the idea that you would sit in front of somebody and propose a project and for $250 million with a straight face and say we're going to have 100 kids straight out of school on your project, doing what?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like it's you know, that I think might be a little bit more of a relabeling of the concept that these are folks that can't be upskilled and were never good at their jobs and fulfilling our clients' needs in the first place. So we're going to fire them all, but instead of calling it what it is, we're going to call it a digital transformation, and we are going to become an automation company. Like,
Mhm.
so? What did you do before
Yeah,
then?
right.
Do
What's your new
automation, or this like, is this a new word to you? So
Yeah.
I think that there's a little bit of a reading between the lines on that, and maybe I'm a little bit cynical on the concept because I have seen too many organizations
Mhm.
trying to figure out. I mean, this the volume of people on their projects. They don't even know what the turnover looks like, right?
Yeah.
On their projects because there are so many names. The fact that there's so many names means that they have no idea which ones have been there and which ones are new and which ones are old and which ones are consistent or
Mhm.
whatever. It's usually the a small group of people doing all the work anyway. So that's a soapbox moment, and I appreciate you giving me the chance to say that. But from a perspective of the concept of AI replacing IT and this push for automation, this isn't new.
Mhm.
Isn't a new challenge. This isn't a new concept. But with AI becoming an enabler of IT, I think is a more appropriate lens to it in that it is another tool. It is
Mhm.
another tool that will allow people to become more effective and more efficient and become quicker at
Mhm.
producing results. And I think that that is really what you should be focusing on when we start to ask the question, how does AI quote unquote replace IT? It
Mhm.
doesn't. At some point, somebody's still got to figure out what database versioning you need to do to manage your environments. How do you get from this database version to that database version? Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to stay up to date on the most current security protocols, right? AI can't do that for you.
Mhm.
It's not going to know how to because it's mixing too many different topics that it doesn't know how to figure out. So the brain is still required, a human brain, at that. So it's not a replacement. It's I think that's a shine on a mass layoff
Yeah.
for probably good reasons. Um, Maybe in between that can't be upskilled. But anyway, what do you think? I'm rambling because I feel very strongly that maybe those people should have been laid off anyway. But
I mean, first of all, no shade to Julie Sweet. I don't even know if I could say that with no shade to Julie Sweet because there is shade to Julie Sweet. Whoever goes on stage and says that their team can't be upskilled, that to me tells me you don't know how to train your own team, right? Like that's your problem as a CEO. So I have a big issue with that statement.
or
I
maybe you just
obviously
made a bunch of the wrong people, and that's what you're bad
Yeah, exactly. So, like, hello.
at.
I'm sure, I mean, being in tech PR, I'm sure her PR team was like, "Oh my god," on the background. But anyway, we're talking about it doesn't matter what, Accenture says or what they do. It matters where you are going to set up the best kind of AI strategy team within your organization. In my opinion, you need to look at AI like, a machinery that needs an operator, right? So for every system, there's going to need to be an operator. And just like anything else in life, the bigger it gets, the more complex it gets. I think the best piece of parenting advice I ever got was I was on a cruise and I was pregnant with our first son. And this older gentleman, very, kind, walked into the elevator with me and he's like, just remember, when they're 3, they have 3-year-old problems. When they're 30, they have 30-year-old problems. And to me, that is the same take here. You have 3 systems, you have 3 problems. You have 30 systems, you have 60 problems, right? Because there's a $1 billion marketing machine that is trying to fool you into thinking that you literally plug these into the wall like you would a home appliance. And it just magically changes your business to be this huge technology first company. And that couldn't be farther from the truth, right? The more systems that you have, the more complexities that you experience as an organization. Those integrations don't just flow forever. They need to be monitored, because then, as you always say, which I always take to heart, then we've got accounting telling us our Q4 revenue was X, and then sales telling us it was Y, and then, the executive leadership telling us it was Z, and we're not all moving in the same direction because we're not measuring things in, a consistent way, because we've dropped 40 different business intelligence tools on us because everybody likes the way that their dashboards look. And IT has lost control of that ability to manage that, because now it's the backbone of technology. And we've got all of these shadow systems where we're dropping our P&L reports into Claude or OpenAI. And all of a sudden, wow, all of our financial information is on the internet. And that is happening in many places. Whether you were sold a white labeled chat wrapped, right, GPT wrapped tool, which is also happening a lot in the marketplace, where you think it's a proprietary system. It's not, right? It's built on another platform. And there's so much of that happening that it needs to be reeled in my opinion, to really, and that takes a strong IT department to do that. That has an AI leg of it, but again, strong leadership to build that. It's not, we can't upskill these people. It's because you had too many people working for you and your shareholders wanted more AI. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Okay.
Well,
So
I think you make a lot of good points, especially as you start to think about this concept of what do we buy? Maybe the answer is nothing for starters, but start with, what do you need? What do you actually need,
what is
right?
the
So,
problem? And it's not, before you go on, it's not that we need AI in 2026. That's not the problem, just to be so clear.
oh yeah, and way I might. So, and this is, I want to take your appliance conversation. I want to kind of see what I can do to really take it to a level that's unreasonable. We
Great.
bought a dishwasher.
Buckle up.
And why did we buy a dishwasher? Well, we needed something that has water, the ability to spray water outwards. That was our requirement. Okay. So you decided to buy this dishwasher and you put it in your kitchen. And now what's wrong? It's like, well, the grass isn't growing. What? Like, well, we needed something that spread water outwards, so we bought a dishwasher. It does that, right? Like, so you needed something to spread water outwards into the grass. Okay, so let's continue to unpack this. And you bought a dishwasher because it has these spouts, and now you're trying to figure out how your dishwasher is going to water your grass. Yeah, yeah. How do we make that work? Well, you don't. You can maybe decompose the whole thing, pull it apart, and maybe you can water some of your grass. So, which grass in which part of your yard do you need this grass? Oh, we're zero-scaped. So you have no grass, but you need something that sprays water to water the grass that you don't have. I mean, this sounds silly and stupid, but at the end of the day, this is the type of conversation that actually happens in businesses.
All the time.
Somebody in IT says, "We bought you this software package. We bought you AI, and this, okay, what does it do? Well, we bought you an AI agent. Well, what does it do? It's a chat engine, which is one of the more common AI conversations, right? It's being able to speak. Chat GPT is a chat engine, right? Chat. Do you get it? Right? So what does it do? It talks. You ask it questions. Okay, can I ask it questions about my business? We can ask it questions about whatever you want. Here you go. So put something in. Um, oh, that doesn't work right now. We can ask it business oriented questions. Why? Because it's not connected to the database. So what can I use it for? You can talk to it. Okay, so I got this new chat tool that I can talk to that's not connected to anything because we don't want to connect it to the whole world wide web. We don't want our data on the internet.
Mhm.
So now what do we have? We have a dishwasher meant to water a lawn, right? We have a chat tool meant to tell us things about our business. Okay, so what does it do? It solves business problems. Okay, how does it know my business problems? It doesn't. And this is where you run into the and we're zero escape conversation, right?
Mhm.
We don't have grass to water. So why do we need to be watering grass? We don't. It's a chat tool. We don't even want to use it because we can't connect it to our data. We don't run a business that actually talks to consumers. We're a B2B
Mhm.
organization, so nobody's going to use that either. So we have a chat tool for what? Nothing. We have a chat tool for nothing. It's wasted money. You can sign up to send that check to the AI company for the next 5 years because you signed
Mhm.
the contract for something that does you nothing. And this is where misalignment and actual need becomes combined with this thought process that we bought a shiny new tool because we wanted to do AI and there's no guidance. We
Mhm.
have questions like,
Exactly.
why are we having problems with a barrier between integrating IT leadership and just strategic decision making? Sometimes there isn't a barrier. Sometimes there's just not a connection either, and
At
that's
all.
the problem in
Yeah.
that where the it has to be objectively oriented towards a purpose. So let's decompose that in a different direction. Somebody says, we want our customers to be able to share more active feedback with us and be more responsive to them about their things. Where's my stuff?
Mhm.
So, how do we do that? Well, we want to be able to more effectively answer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Where's my stuff for our customers? So, we're going to provide an agent who they can ask, where's my stuff?
Mhm. Mhm.
And now we have a use case. And now we say, okay, now how do we solve for building that agent in a way that's solution oriented? What information does it need? It needs to know what the customer's order was. It needs to know where the warehouse, which warehouse is sending it. It needs to know what the lead times are and all of these things. Now we're plugging in the pieces. Not I just bought something and here you go, it works. We plugged it in and it sprays water. No, it has to be solution oriented. And
Mhm.
maybe you run into a scenario where somebody goes, right, but actually, our customers aren't interested in that. I talked to them yesterday. They could care less when
Yeah.
it's going to arrive as long as it does. And then your whole use case is shot because
Yeah.
you had a customer conversation with the person who's actually going to use the tool. Uh, anyway, that's the challenge that people are doing when they jump to solution and just buy something.
Yeah.
And this is what people are doing with AI right now.
Mhm.
They are replacing IT with AI. It's like that's like replacing the business with widgets.
Mhm.
You still need a function, right? You can
Or
have
a dishwasher with, like, one of those, like, scraping things you use in the river. I don't even know what they're called, like the washboard things.
oh yeah.
Like Dr.
It
Quinn
is
medicine when
a
it's done.
washboard.
Yeah,
And you
there
can't
you go.
wash dishes with that either. So you can wash clothes. right. So it's again,
Adam
maybe
doesn't do a lot of laundry. I know everybody's shocked for that.
what? That's not fair. Um,
But I think this, I mean, I love this comment here from Jason, especially from the vendor perspective. And I'm going to summarize it because it's a long comment. But the move from on-prem to the cloud is kind of a feeding frenzy of the sales team, and it's non-IT buyers, right? Organizations invite failure when you buy without internal collaboration, without
mhm.
understanding the people in the organizations you're required to support. And I think, a lot of times this is something that we often jump in to help our vendor partners with. And, we don't take any sort of kickbacks or anything like that from selling different software. We don't even sell software. So a lot of times we're seen as kind of, the advocate on the client side, but we often are the advocate on the vendor side too, when it comes to they've bought this system that is not the right fit for them. And we come in after that process. So we get a front row seat to this failure of not talking to your end users, right? Because you got excited about moving to the cloud because you went to CES and saw a floating tractor. So then you signed a deal that you'd have to give your firstborn child away, to be able to break. It's not going to happen, especially if
They'll take your firstborn child and your check.
Right. They especially if you're a bigger organization, we see this happen a lot, especially with our ECC customers that are moving to S4 on the SAP side and they've signed RISE. You're not getting out of that contract without millions of dollars of litigation. I promise you, it's not happening, right? You might have areas of negotiation, but the reason that this happened is we bought without that internal collaboration, which again, cannot be replicated by AI. Finding use case ideas in talking to an AI chatbot, sure, but it's never going to give you the most important database, which is the end user in which you're buying it for. We've seen that happen time and time again. The scenario that Adam just outlined of where we have a technology, we're talking to the team, it's implemented, and the end user's like, okay, that's cool, I guess, but I don't even do that. Like I don't even function that way. And it's like, wait, we just spent a year talking about this technology that they don't even need. Like, how is that missed? Happens all the time. All the time.
Yeah, there's so much that you can pull together in that too. This move from on-prem to SaaS-based software, that CapEx versus OpEx budget is actually important. There are these things called depreciations. They're a part of that conversation. A capital project builds value for the business. An operational project does not. It just adds an expense. And that's such a core difference in how things function today, where SaaS-based, cloud-based operations and software are just expenses now. You can't capitalize them. You can't say that we built something that is an asset anymore. And there's a lot of debate in this from an accounting perspective and from a finance perspective, because I know plenty of folks are like, well, it's still an IT system. You're still building something. It's still, so you can still capitalize that. And that's what the vendors will tell you. It's still capitalizable. But I know plenty of folks that sit on the other side of the fence that are also in accounting and say, that's wishful thinking. It's
That's
not an asset.
dreams.
It's a subscription.
Exactly. And it might have innovation, right, in the sales messaging, but that's not it. No.
Yep. And if you said it's not something that you can capitalize to some people, and that's an important conversation. And I don't know that I mean, I'm not an accountant by any means, so I don't know exactly how to solve it, but I can tell you that it is a hotly debated conversation on what you can capitalize and what you can't. And it is not as clean and clear as software vendors would lead you to believe, that's for sure. And maybe it's a decision that your organization still needs to make for itself on what you want to believe and what you don't. That's a totally different conversation question. But what is actually happening in this space, because there's no need to capitalize these types of projects, which is a different space. There's maybe not need to capitalize them, but they aren't clearly capital projects. They don't go through the same approval process. They're just an expense that somebody on some business team has the ability to approve. So we're going to buy a software package, we're going to get up and running, we're going to add licenses because it's a low code, no code program. And then you end up with and then what ends up happening, somebody from that team goes to IT and says, I broke it. And they go, you broke what? Well, the system. Like, well, what system? Oh, you don't know about this? this whatever call it, this new AI oriented chat that will speak to your shop floor and run all your machinery for you and move all of your equipment. All that. No, I have no idea what that is. Oh, you should see it. It's the coolest. Like, it does all of these things. Like, okay, where is it doing those things? Actually, it's broken. So,
Yeah. Can you fix
so it's
it
not doing any of those things.
right
You're
now?
to fix the
Yeah.
problem that you created, because now we have a problem with shadow IT. And that's something that every organization grows into, I think, at some point in time, where there's just so much going on in the organization, and IT has a bad relationship with the business. They're unable to show them how it is they can creatively solve solutions, so the business goes and does it themselves. And then they come to IT when they break it, because they don't know the technology side of things. That's not their acumen, and now we have a problem that is snowballing, because now IT doesn't know about it either. They don't know how to fix it, and we just end up back and forth. So that, I think that comment on OpEx versus CapEx is something that there's so many legs to that, and how it is that creates problems for people. And I just see right here, you can't capitalize subscriptions. You can sometimes capitalize customizations 100%, right? Like, this is, you can, it, I am 100% certain that sometime at some point in the 90s, somebody sat down with an accountant and said, right, but I'm building something. And all the accountants at this point, no, it's not capitalizable. You can't put my hands on it. And maybe I'm making an argument for the other side and growing into this conversation on subscriptions, but this is a challenging conversation.
I agree.
And you can say that it is an on-prem customized solution is an asset that's being built for your business. When it's something that you log into that somebody else runs and owns somewhere else, how do you argue that that is something that I own and can depreciate?
And I would add to that, then especially for larger organizations, when you try to move off or integrate that subscription, they block your data. So who actually owns that data, right? Is that you? Because now you don't have access to it, because they're like, my system, my data. I
Well, I
don't
feel like
want.
that's a little bit of like the rich people that live on the beaches in California who built a fence that blocks the public access to the beach that they think is theirs but isn't. But that's they're doing that in Montana as well. This isn't just against the Californians, but that's it's my access point, and I
I
own it.
mean, you
I don't
you
care
can
what you
take.
think you own
I
behind it.
can even cite lawsuits in California, right? SAP sued Celonis, or I'm sorry, the other way around. Celonis sued SAP for that type of information. And funny enough, Christy, we know it's you from the comments. Like I already knew that. Like we could tell who it was. So what we're gonna do in this conversation, because it's important, I'm gonna take this and probably actually bring Christy on the live. And then we can talk about this, because this is something that needs to be talked about. But we have to sum up this conversation. I think the point of this, right, is think about all of the complexities that we just talked about. Even Adam and I on different sides of, well, consider this. Well, you need to do this. Well, you need to do this, right? That is how complex these conversations are. Complexity adds, if you've ever built an AI system, think about the map of workflows that are just blowing up in your mind right now, right? It is not possible for a system to oversee an entire IT team, right? There are levels in which you should focus on AI and automation in a smart, strategic way, not buying systems that you don't have anything else, to really talk about. So I just can't end the stream. These are so good. And absolutely, that the data piece of that needs to be executed on the contract. Absolutely. And again, I'll say it once, I've said it 1,000 times. These are not normal contracts for your internal counsel to review. You need specialized people, attorneys, whomever to look through these, and they can be negotiated, especially if you're looking at those bigger systems and are like, this is our standard contract, we don't change our terms. That's baloney. Okay, so I'll just throw that in there. But the dog's growling. So Adam, final closing thoughts before we have to get back to, unfortunately, our day job. But this has been so amazing. You guys make this cool. It's just us up here, having a conversation. It's the comments that really make this valuable so that people can get these different perspectives. It's so critical. So I'm really grateful for all of this great information, as is the dog. She's hyped up.
If we're talking about final parting comments, and I'm going to use a problem that I'm working with literally right this second. Business, I need something. I need you. I need you. I need you. I need you. What is it that you want? I don't know. I just want to play. I want some neat fun things. Our 1-year-old boxer, she's the sweetest thing. She wants to play, but it's raining outside, so she's like, she's pulling papers off my desk now. So
okay, cool.
Anyway, so from a closing thoughts perspective, I think it still always comes down to really being able to say, what is my actual need? What do I need? And how do I get that? How do I get that in the most cost-effective, reasonable way? And maybe that is AI. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's ERP. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's technology. Maybe it's not. Right? So we will always come back to that conversation as it pertains to the whole of the business and the whole of the use case, which is solving a particular problem. And then one of the questions that we talked about today that I think is still one of the things that we help so many organizations with, that they don't even realize is a challenge that they have, is the relationship between their business and IT organizations is fractured in one way or another. And I can tell you with certainty, if IT ever says something like, you can't have that because we have our own projects that take our capacity. IT needs to be operated. That's fine. I get that. So I'm splitting a hair here, but if it's because we have our own projects that we can't get to yours for, or that's just simply something that doesn't function that way, maybe you have more of a challenge between that conversation on the whole. So anyway.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you all again for your time. I will try and get the CapEx versus OpEx on our schedule for next week. With client travel and different things like that, we try to make sure we go live every Friday. But we really enjoyed this conversation, and Adam dropped. But we've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for these amazing comments. As always, I'll go back in and answer them, tag some additional colleagues who can get involved in these conversations and add some really good color. But we really appreciate you showing up today. We'll see you next Friday around the same time. We usually go live about 9:30 Eastern time here in the US. And then we will try and get that on our schedule to kind of break down and talk about more of that budget piece of that. But thank you, Adam, for all of your great insight. Thank you to our great commenters here, and we'll see you next week.